Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this episode, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland and Disneyland history with mementos, snapshots, and postcards sent from Disneyland from 1955 to the present. Today I'm starting off by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join and receive mail from my desk or from my Disneyland trips. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the e-ticket patrons Tania, Eric Daniels, Joe Gamble, Scott Booker, Monica Seitz Vega, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, Scott Cagle, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Grace Coate, Brian Crawford, Ben and Noel Bruning, Patty Wolin, Angela Reynolds, Greg Gorley, and Aaron Moran. B-ticket patrons Jeff and Paige Orton, and Joshua, and Exorable Tosh Bell. And the A-ticket patrons Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Maggie and Henry Byers, Angel DeBlois, and the All Aboard podcast. You can also sign up for my new newsletter for a chance to get some postcards delivered by the USPS to your mailbox. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has 4 of the Can-Can dancers on stage at the Golden Horseshoe. Below them you can see a 3-piece band including drums, a piano, and a trumpet. On the back it reads, Golden Horseshoe Show, a lively finale at the Golden Horseshoe Review. One of Disneyland's many entertainments is provided by the colorful costume Can-Can girls. It's postmarked June 20th, 1967, with an Anaheim always use a zip code cancel and a 4-cent Lincoln postage stamp. Scott number 1036. I assume they visited the park on Monday, June 19, 1967, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The weather was a high of 78 and a low of 56. It's addressed to Mrs. Leo Krivenko of Grunerville, California. It reads, Monday, 6/19. Dear Sonia, spent the day here on our way to Montana and Canada. Sorry haven't written sooner, but kept expecting you would. Your friend came to see me. Hope your family well and happy. Will call you on return. Regards to all, Anne. Ice cream has been available in the park since 1955, from either the classic Carnation Ice Cream Parlor on Main Street to vendors pushing carts around the park. But while looking through some old park maps, I noticed a unique ice cream shop in Frontierland. Currently in Frontierland, you can enjoy root beer floats, sundaes, and seasonal offerings around holidays and themed events in the Golden Horseshoe. But in 1958, an ice cream shop opened between the Oaks Tavern, now the Stage Shore Cafe, and the Silver Banjo Barbecue, now part of the Riverbell Terrace. Looking at the first appearance of the ice cream shop in a guidebook or map was the 1958 or 1959 guidebook, which lists a malt shop along with the Golden Horseshoe, Oaks Tavern, and the Silver Banjo. All the early 1960s maps list the malt shop. Looking at the 1965 Disneyland guidebook titled Walt Disney's Pictorial Souvenir Book of Disneyland, it lists both the Frontierland malt shop and the Frontierland ice cream shop. Researching further into Disneyland maps, from the 1966 and the fall-winter 1967, 2 separate locations are again listed and marked on the map, but this time with the names Cone Shop and Malt Shop. In the back of the 1966 map, the description reads, Cone Shop, ice cream cones, and Malt Shop, assorted flavored malts, hamburgers, and hot dogs. In the 1968 summer, and my pink-covered 1968 Disneyland map location is listed as Shake and Sandwich Shop. I assume the ice cream shop took over the Silver Banjo restaurant location based on the food offerings available to guests. Both the malt shop and the ice cream shop closed in 1970. Great news, Enfield Post is back up on Etsy. Grabbing some vintage stamps is a great way to plus your mail, whether you're trying to match the color of your postcard or envelope or adding a themed stamp to the back of your mail. Be sure to check out Enfield Post. You can head over to enfieldpost.com and explore all the different vintage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELD POST on Instagram and EnfieldPost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has the Mark Twain floating down the rivers of America and past Cascade Peak. On the back it reads, Mark Twain's steamboat passes Cascade Peak and its beautiful waterfalls, one of the newest additions to Frontierland, as it continues on a journey down the rivers of America. It's postmarked May 2nd, 1977, with the San Diego Cancel and a 9-cent Right of People Peaceably to Assemble Capitol Dome postage stamp, Scott number 1591. I assume they visit the park on Saturday, April 30th, 1977, and Sunday, May 1st, 1977, when park hours were from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. both days. The weather was a high of 75 on Saturday and a high of 74 on Sunday and a low of 58 on both days. It's addressed to Mrs. A. K. Tolley of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. It reads, Dear Gma, spent 2 days in Disneyland. We saw almost everything. We have 2 very tired but happy children. The train ride was quite an event, but we all survived. It's now on to San Diego and the great-grandparents. See you soon, the traveling Wilsons. The Wilsons left Disneyland just prior to the opening of Space Mountain 2 days later, but they may have been able to enjoy what followed the closure of the malt and ice cream shop known as the Delta Sandwich Shop and the Wheelhouse. Both of these food locations opened in 1970. Looking through the 1970s maps, the Wheelhouse was mostly open for weekends and holidays and served standards like hamburgers, hot dogs, milkshakes, beverages, and ice cream. In the 1985 map, the Wheelhouse is listed as serving soft-serve cones, sundaes, nachos, cherry ices, and beverages. And by 1990, it was serving hot dogs, soft ice cream in cones, root beer floats, sundaes, and beverages. And in 1992, they added a whole baked potato and fudge brownies to the menu. Next door at the Delta Banjo Sandwich Shop, it started out selling cold sandwiches and milkshakes, but by the summer of '75, it began selling Frontier Freezes and potato chips. It was also listed in the map as just Delta Banjo. By the 1980 map, the Delta Banjo offered orange ices and chips, and in 1983, orange ices were replaced by cherry ices. The Delta Banjo was not always mentioned on the map between 1970 through the early 80s, and was not on any maps after 1984. The Wheelhouse continued to operate on weekends and summers until 1993. Nothing replaced these 2 food attractions. I assume the River Belle Terrace and the Bengal Barbecue share what was the Wheelhouse's kitchen space. This incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is an online craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific. Be sure to check out Monday's ATD, which is usually hosted by paper artist Russ Romano. I've seen many amazing art projects, learned about awesome postmarks, postage stamp history, and a lot more on different episodes. It's great to stop in for an hour to watch someone craft or design something unique. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming postcard is an illustration of Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs at the Main Street Flower Market in Disneyland. On the back it reads, Snow White's Fantasy Bouquet. The Main Street Flower Market is an ideal place for the 7 Dwarfs to choose a unique bouquet of posies for their special girl. It's postmarked July 20th, 2024, with the Santa Ana Cancel and a U.S. flag Freedom Forever postage stamp, Scott number 5791. It reads, I hope you like this postcard, Kayla. Thank you so much for the postcard, Kayla. It's always amazing to see how long it takes some postcards to reach its intended mailbox. Kayla and I always have a good laugh about how long it will take a postcard to get from Disneyland to Orange, California, and how short it takes for some to make it from Disneyland to some international destinations. Surprisingly, I didn't have this postcard in my collection. I have the Walt Disney World version, which looks the same but has Walt Disney World printed on the back, and have a similar postcard from the series with Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs at the wishing well surrounded by doves. I also noticed the red Disneyland Resort rubber stamp on the back of the card. This is a new one, as the rubber stamp they used to use on Main Street was much whiter and had black ink. I'll have to stop by and get a few postcards stamped the next time I'm down there. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would be helpful to share your favorite episode to a friend or on social media. There are over 200 to choose from. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you would like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sent From Disneyland, or on Twitter at Sent From Disney. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent From Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to its host and guests of the Sent From Disneyland podcast.